Welcome back to the deep dive. I am so glad you're here with us today because we are going to transport you somewhere that I think, honestly, about 90% of the working population dreams about at least once a week.
Once a week. I'd say once a day, specifically around, 2:30 in the afternoon when that post-lunch slump hits.
Laughs, right? That is the danger zone. Okay, I want everyone listening to just pause for a second. If you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, obviously. But if you're safe to do so, close your eyes. I want you to conjure up an image.
Okay, I'm doing it.
You're sitting on a pristine, white, sandy beach. The sun is shining. It's that perfect golden hour light where everything looks cinematic. There's a gentle, warm breeze blowing through the palm trees behind you.
I can almost hear the rustling leaves, just hearing you describe it. Sounds nice.
Exactly. You've got a fresh coconut on the table next to you, condensation dripping down the side. And right beside that coconut is your laptop. You're typing away, you're productive, you're making money, but your soundtrack isn't office chatter or the hum of the air conditioner. It's the sound of waves crashing on the shore. That's perfect.
It sounds like a postcard. Or, to be more modern about it, it sounds like a very, very curated Instagram reel.
It does.
It's the image that launched 1,000 resignations, I think.
It really does. It sounds like the ultimate escape. Quitting the gray office, ditching the commute, and moving to Bali or Thailand or Lisbon. But, and you know there's always a but on this show.
There's always a but.
We wouldn't be doing a deep dive if everything was exactly as it appeared on the surface. We're taking a look at a source today that suggests this image, this specific digital nomad lifestyle, might be, well, a bit of a mirage.
A mirage, yeah. Or at least the reality is a lot more jagged than the smooth pictures would have you believe. That's right. We're doing a deep dive into a text called The Digital Nomad Reality. And what I love about this source is that it doesn't just say it's bad or it's good. It really digs into the texture of the experience. It challenges the popular narrative by acknowledging the dream. It admits the dream is beautiful, but then it relentlessly unpacks the complex nature of actually living it.
Complex.
Yeah.
That's usually a polite code word for really, really difficult, isn't it?
It can be.
Like when you ask someone how their relationship is and they say, it's complex.
It often is. And we have a special mission for this deep dive. We know a lot of our listeners are using this show to sharpen their English skills, specifically aiming for that upper intermediate or, B2 level.
Right. So we're doing double duty today. We're multitaskers.
Exactly. We're going to analyze the lifestyle, the psychological, the financial pros and cons, but we're also going to pause and really dismantle the specific vocabulary and idioms used in this text. The author uses some incredibly rich language to describe really the human condition in this context.
I noticed that. Phrases like isolation, blurred lines, and that classic one, burning the candle at both ends.
These aren't just throwaway phrases. They are the architectural pillars of the argument. So they're going to explore what they mean, not just in a dictionary sense, but in an emotional sense. We want you to be able to use these words to describe your own experiences.
I love it. Life and language. Let's dive in. The source text starts with that image I just described. It says, the dream of quitting a 9-to-5 office job to work from a beach in Bali is more popular than ever. But then it drops the hammer. Reality is far more complex.
Let's stop right there at the first pillar, the 9-to-5 office job.
It's a classic, isn't it? In this narrative, the 9-to-5 is basically the villain of the story.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the monster we're all running away from.
It is the antagonist, yes.
Yeah.
But let's look at the phrase itself, 9-to-5. It's become a kind of cultural shorthand.
Shorthand. What do you mean by that?
I mean, it's a quick way of saying something really complicated. Literally, it just refers to standard working hours, 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. But culturally, in the English-speaking world, it carries a lot of baggage. It doesn't just mean work. It means rigidity. It means routine. It implies a lack of agency.
Right. It's not just about the hours. It's about the feeling of being a cog in a machine. It represents predictability and often, let's be honest, boredom. It evokes this image of fluorescent lights, gray carpets, repetitive tasks. The source text sets up the digital nomad life as the antidote to this 9-to-5 poison.
Precisely. It sets up a binary contrast, a duality. On one side, you have the cage of the office. On the other side, the open sky. And the first big benefit the text highlights in opposition to the 9-to-5 is undeniable freedom.
Undeniable. That's a strong adjective. It means you can't argue against it. It's just a fact. It's absolute.
And looking at the text, the primary driver of this freedom is the ability to design their own schedules.
That phrase, design their own schedules, is interesting. It sounds so artistic. It implies you're the architect of your own day. You aren't just following orders or punching a clock. You're building the structure of your life from the ground up.
That is the allure. That's the hook. Instead of your day being a container that someone else fills, you get to build the container. And what's the immediate, tangible benefit of that design according to the source?
Avoiding the dreaded morning commute.
Oh, dreaded.
I think that word hits home for a lot of people.
It really is a visceral word. To dread something means to anticipate it with fear or anxiety or just intense dislike. You don't just dislike the commute, you dread it. You go to sleep thinking about it.
I think that resonates with almost everyone. Anyone who has sat in bumper-to-bumper traffic for an hour, watching the taillights turn red, smelling the exhaust fumes, or been squeezed onto a crowded subway train at 8 a.m. with someone's elbow in their back.
It is a universal pain point.
Yeah.
The text identifies the commute not just as a waste of time, but as a source of stress. It's dead time. It's time that belongs to no one. By stepping out of the 9 to 5 structure, you're surgically removing this major stressor from your life.
So let's just picture the contrast. Scene A, you wake up to a blaring alarm, you chug coffee, you rush to a train, you stand in a sweaty crowd, you get to a gray office already tired.
Right.
Scene B, you wake up naturally, maybe you stretch, you brew a slow coffee, you open your laptop on your patio. That's the design your own life part.
It's compelling. It's
Yeah.
very hard to argue against scene B. But the text goes deeper than just avoiding traffic. It talks about where you're doing this work. It mentions the opportunity to immerse themselves in new cultures.
This is a key distinction I want to dig into. The text uses the word immerse.
Yes, to immerse. Think of the physical action. If you dip your toe in a pool, you're testing the water. You're on the edge. If you immerse yourself, you are jumping in. You're going under. You're completely surrounded by the water.
So in a travel context, how is that different from just being a tourist? Because, tourists go to new places too.
It's completely different. A tourist visits. They skim the surface, they see the Eiffel Tower, they eat a croissant, they take a photo, and they leave. They're observers. A digital nomad, according to this text, has the chance to live there, to understand the rhythm of the place,
Okay.
to figure out how to pay the electricity bill, to find out where the locals buy their vegetables, to understand the cultural nuances of how people greet each other.
You're dealing with the plumbing, the grocery shopping, the bureaucracy. You're part of the fabric of the place, not just a decoration.
Exactly, the fabric. And the source connects this immersion to personal growth. It says this leads to a broader perspective.
That makes logical sense. When you're exposed to different ways of living, different values, different daily struggles, your view of the world just naturally expands. You stop thinking your way, the way you were raised, is the only way. That's what broader perspective means, right?
It challenges your assumptions. It makes you question things you thought were universal truths.
It sounds like a crash course in empathy and understanding. You're not just watching the world, you're participating in it.
Exactly. And that connects to the next point the source makes, which brings us back to the work itself. The text claims that many nomads report higher levels of creativity and job satisfaction.
And here comes my favorite image from this section. It says they're happier because they aren't chained to a desk.
Chained to a desk. It's a very dramatic, almost violent metaphor, isn't it?
It suggests imprisonment, like you're a prisoner in your own office. It implies you're trapped there against your will.
It emphasizes the lack of physical movement and the restriction in the corporate world. The contrast here is so stark. On one side, you have the 9 to 5, the dreaded commute and being chained.
Yeah.
On the other side, you have designing your life, immersion, and creativity.
When you stack the deck like that, it's no wonder the lifestyle is booming. I mean, if I'm sitting in a gray cubicle under fluorescent lights looking at a gray fabric wall, my creativity is probably going to be gray too. But if I'm looking at a mountain range in Peru or a busy street market in Hanoi,
Your brain is stimulated. New sights, new sounds, new smells. It forces the brain to make new neural connections. The text suggests that this changing environment naturally sparks ideas. You aren't stagnant. You're constantly feeding your brain.
okay, I have to say, I am totally sold on part one. The allure is real, the freedom, the flexibility, the creativity. It sounds like paradise. But I know the premise of the show and I know this text. We're about to hit the reality check.
We are. And the reality check in this source is quite heavy. It pivots from the external environment, the beach, the mountains, the food, to the internal state of the person.
Right. The text transitions to the downsides, and the first big one is the social cost.
Specifically, the lack of community. And the text uses very heavy language here. Working remotely can lead to profound isolation and loneliness.
Profound. That's a weighty word. It means deep, intense, serious. It's not just, oh, I'm a little bit lonely. It's profoundly lonely. It touches the soul.
And interestingly, the text connects this deep feeling to the loss of something that seems almost trivial, something we usually joke about. The water cooler chats.
Okay, we have to stop here and explain this because if you don't work in a traditional Western office, or if you're not from an English-speaking corporate culture, water cooler chat might sound very strange. We aren't just talking about staying hydrated, are we?
No, not at all. The water cooler is a literal object, that large bottle of water upside down on a machine that dispenses cold water in an office kitchen or a hallway.
Got it.
But as an idiom, water cooler chat refers to those informal, spontaneous conversations you have with colleagues when you take a break to get a drink.
It's when you bump into someone in the hallway and say, hey, did you see the game last night? Or how was your weekend? Or even just complaining about the weather or the printer not working again. Exactly. They're unplanned, they're low stakes, they seem almost meaningless in the moment. You're not talking about strategy or budgets. But the text suggests, and sociologists would agree, that these small interactions are actually the glue that builds relationships. They're how you bond with people.
It's that weak tie connection. You aren't best friends, but you know them. You share a space. You share a context. And when you're a digital nomad, you don't have a water cooler. You might not even have colleagues in the same time zone.
That's the void the text describes. Without those effortless daily interactions, you have to work incredibly hard to interact with anyone. In an office, social interaction is passive. It just happens to you. As a nomad, it has to be active. You have to make it happen every time.
This leads us to the word isolation. The text seems to draw a line between just being alone and this concept of isolation.
It's a really important nuance for our learners. You can be alone in your room and feel perfectly fine. That's solitude.
Solitude is often a choice, and it can be peaceful, restorative, even creative. Isolation, as it's used in the text, implies a lack of support. It implies being cut off from a group involuntarily. It has a negative connotation.
So let's paint a picture. You could be in a bustling cafe in Bangkok, surrounded by 50 people.
But if you don't know any of them, and you have nobody to talk to about your day and no shared history with anyone around you, you're experiencing isolation. You're alone in a crowd.
Precisely. You are physically present, but socially isolated. The text calls it a community void.
And think about the office again. The community is built in. You don't have to try to make friends. They're sitting next to you. You struggle through the same projects. You celebrate the same birthdays. You complain about the same boss.
You have a shared enemy. It's a great bonding tool.
It is. As a nomad, you have to build that from scratch every single time you move to a new city.
That sounds exhausting. I mean, I love meeting new people, but having to constantly introduce yourself. Hi, I'm host. I'm from here. I do this. And never really getting past that surface level. I can see how that leads to loneliness. You never get to the inside jokes.
It's the difference between having deep roots and just floating on the surface. And that loneliness can be compounded by the next issue the text raises, which is about the structure of the day itself.
Yeah.
The blurred lines between work and leisure.
Blurred lines. This is another great phrase for our listeners to visualize.
Yes. Imagine taking a black marker and drawing a sharp, clear line on a piece of paper. One side is work, the other side is relaxation. Now, pour a cup of water on that line.
The ink runs.
It spreads. It bleeds out. It turns gray. You can no longer tell where one side ends and the other begins. That is a blurred line.
The source says this makes it difficult to switch off.
Switch off is the phrasal verb here, like a light switch.
Right.
Click. It means to stop thinking about work and just relax. In an office, the commute, that dreaded commute we talked about, actually serves a purpose. It's a transition ritual. When you leave the building, you switch off. You physically leave the work behind.
But if your office is your living room or your hotel room or that beach chair,
then your brain never gets the signal that work is over. You're checking emails while you're eating dinner. You're thinking about a spreadsheet while you're swimming. The physical separation of the office is gone, so the mental separation disappears too.
I think that's a trap a lot of people fall into, even working from home, let alone traveling around the world. You feel guilty if you aren't working, but you feel stressed if you are. It's a horrible limbo.
Absolutely. Now, the text adds a logistical nightmare to this mix that's specific to nomads. Meeting deadlines in different time zones.
Ugh. This is where the dream really crashes into the reality of physics and geography. If you're living your dream life in Bali, but your client is in New York, There's a 12-hour time difference. When they're starting their day with that morning coffee, you should be going to sleep.
And the text uses a very specific, very evocative idiom to describe what happens next. Burning the candle at both ends.
This is one of my favorite idioms in the English language because the imagery is just so clear.
It is. Imagine a long wax candle. Usually you light the wick at the top, and it burns down slowly over many hours. It gives you a steady light. Now imagine you tip it over and light the bottom wick as well.
It's going to produce a lot of light for a moment. It's going to be very bright.
But it's going to melt twice as fast, and it's going to be hot and messy to hold. To burn the candle at both ends means to exhaust yourself by doing too much, specifically by going to bed late and waking up early. You're depleting your energy reserves from two directions at once.
So in the Nomad context, you're staying up until 3 a.m. to catch a Zoom meeting with the New York team.
But then you're waking up at 8 a.m. because you're in Bali and you want to go surfing or explore the local market before it gets too hot. You're trying to live two lives at once.
And the text says this leads to inevitable exhaustion. You aren't really enjoying the travel because you're tired, and you aren't really doing your best work because you're tired. It becomes a lose-lose situation if you don't manage it perfectly.
That sounds incredibly stressful. It's funny, the freedom to design your own schedule can actually become a trap where you never stop working.
That is the irony the source highlights. The structure of the 9 to 5 is restrictive, yes, but it's also protective. It puts a fence around your work time. It says work happens here and not there. When you're a nomad, the office follows you everywhere. It's in your backpack. It's in your pocket.
Okay, so we've dealt with the social cost, the isolation, and the work-life balance issues, the burnout. But there's another reality check in the text that hits you right in the wallet. Part 4, the financial reality.
Ah, yes. The currency of stability, as we might call it. The text discusses a specific trade-off.
It gives the example of a freelancer in London.
Right. It says a freelancer in London might earn a good wage, high cost of living, but a high income. But the text warns that this salary might not stretch as far depending on where you are. Or rather, the comparison is tricky.
The text is actually pointing out something more subtle than just the cost of beer or rent. It's pointing out that the freelancer lacks something crucial that the corporate employee has: the safety net.
Safety net. Let's pause on that image. It's a circus metaphor, isn't it?
It is. Picture trapeze artists flying through the air high above the crowd. It's dangerous. They're taking risks. But below them, there is a net. If they fall, the net catches them. They bounce. They don't hit the concrete.
So in the corporate world, the safety net refers to all those benefits that protect you from financial disaster.
Exactly. The text lists a couple of key ones: corporate health benefits and paid leave.
These are things we often take for granted in a full-time job. If you get sick, the insurance pays for the doctor. If you get the flu and miss a week of work, or if you go on vacation for 2 weeks, the money still appears in your bank account. It's magic.
But if you're a digital nomad freelancer,
If you don't work, you don't get paid. Zero. The tap just turns off.
and if you get sick in a foreign country, you're paying that hospital bill yourself. Or you're navigating complex, often expensive travel insurance policies. There is no net. If you fall, you hit the ground, and hitting the ground hurts.
This is the big debate point, isn't it? Because I can hear the optimist people staring at that Instagram photo saying, yeah, but I can live in Thailand for a fraction of the cost of London. My money goes further. That's my safety net. I can save more.
And that's the concept of geo-arbitrage: earning a strong currency, like dollars or pounds, and spending a weak currency. And that's a valid economic strategy. It works. But the source text is focusing on the instability. Currency values fluctuate. Clients can fire you without notice. Without that corporate structure, the variance in your life increases dramatically.
So the host in me says, look at all this cash I'm saving on rent. But the expert in you says, well, what happens if you break your leg tomorrow or if the exchange rate crashes?
Exactly. The corporate worker pays for stability with their freedom. They give up the 9 to 5 to be safe. The digital nomad pays for freedom with their stability. They give up the safety net to own their time. It's a transaction. You have to decide which currency you value more: time or security.
That is a profound way to put it. It's not just about money. It's about what you're buying with your career choices. You're buying a lifestyle, but you are paying with risk.
Precisely. And this leads us perfectly to the final section of the text. It seems like this lifestyle isn't for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
The source explicitly says success depends on, well, a specific type of person.
It calls it the personality test, essentially. The text says success depends on personality and discipline.
Discipline. That word keeps coming up. Why is it more important for a nomad than an office worker?
Well, think about the environment again. In an office, your boss is down the hall. Your colleagues are working around you. There's social pressure to be productive. If you stop working to watch a movie, someone will notice. The environment forces you to work.
But if you're sitting on a beanbag chair in a hostel with a cocktail menu next to you and the beach is 10 feet away,
And nobody is watching. There is no boss. There are no colleagues.
it takes an immense amount of internal self-control discipline to say, no, I will not go to the beach yet. I must finish this report.
The text also mentions the ability to cope with uncertainty.
This links back to the financial and social instability we discussed. You don't know when the next paycheck is coming. You don't know if the Wi-Fi will work today, which is a huge stressor. You don't know if you'll make friends in this new city.
If you're the kind of person who needs a plan, who needs to know exactly what tomorrow looks like, who finds comfort in routine, this sounds like a complete nightmare.
And that is the text's conclusion. It says for some, this lifestyle is ultimate liberation.
Freedom, the ability to breathe.
But for others, it is a recipe for anxiety and instability.
Recipe for anxiety. I like that phrase too. It implies a process. It's not just that it causes anxiety. It's like you're gathering all the ingredients: loneliness, financial risk, sleep deprivation, culture shock, mixing them in a bowl, and baking a cake called anxiety.
That is a perfect visualization. A recipe for disaster or a recipe for anxiety implies that if you combine these factors, the outcome is almost inevitable unless you intervene.
So, we've reached the end of the source material. We've unpacked the dream and the reality.
We have, and we've covered some serious ground with the language too.
Let's do a quick recap of the big vocabulary pillars we learned today before we give our final verdict.
Sure. We started with the 9 to 5, not just a time, but a symbol of the corporate grind and rigidity.
We discussed immersion, diving deep into a culture, living it, not just skimming the surface like a tourist.
We analyzed isolation versus solitude and the surprising importance of the water cooler chats, those small, spontaneous interactions we lose when we leave the office.
We looked at blurred lines, the metaphor for when work and life mix together messily and you can't switch off.
And burning the candle at both ends, exhausting yourself by working late and waking early to try and have it all.
And finally, the safety net, that financial and medical protection you lose when you leave the corporate world.
That's a solid list. If our listeners can use these phrases in conversation, they are definitely hitting that upper intermediate level.
Absolutely.
So here is the big question. Based only on this text, what's your verdict? Is the Instagram dream worth the complex reality?
If I'm basing it strictly on the text, I would say it's a high-risk, high-reward investment. The text doesn't say don't do it. It says know yourself. If you have the discipline, and you can handle the uncertainty, and you're proactive about building community, then the ultimate liberation is a massive reward. It's a life-changing reward. But if you need the water cooler, if you crave the safety net, if you struggle with self-motivation, you are going to be miserable. You will be lonely and anxious in paradise.
I think that's fair. I'm still dazzled by the design your own life part. The idea of escaping the commute is just, it's too tempting for me. But I hear you on the loneliness. I think I'd miss the office gossip more than I'd like to admit.
We're social creatures, after all. We need the tribe.
We do.
Here's a provocative thought for our listeners to take away. The text talks about designing your life. We often think that means changing where we are moving to Bali or Lisbon. But could you use that same discipline to design a better life right where you are? Do you have to move across the world to find liberation, or is that just running away from the 9 to 5?
Ooh, deep. Are you a nomad or are you just a runner? That is something to think about.
Indeed.
Listeners, we want to know what you think. Are you wired for the ultimate liberation, or would the lack of a safety net keep you up at night? Think about it, practice those idioms, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep learning.
Goodbye, everyone.